Look what I just got here.
Dennis asks, should more people run a full node in the light of the recent contentious hard fork and user-activated soft fork? Dennis, you should run your own node so that you can independently validate transactions. If you are not running a node and validating the rules, you are not part of consensus. You're not participating in consensus. And if you have to ask someone else if a transaction happened, and every time you type in the address of a block explorer in your browser and you say, hey, has my transaction confirmed? What you're doing is you're delegating your ability to independently validate that transaction and to find out if it's confirmed according to the consensus rules. You're asking someone else and you're delegating that authority to someone else. And that's centralization. So who knows? What consensus rules are they running to decide that? Are they telling you that this was validated on the fork that you think you were running, or maybe they're following the wrong fork? So you should run a full node in order to be able to answer those questions yourself. Now, the reality is that most people can't do that. Technically, it's not easy, but more people can. In fact, it's much better if you can run a full node that operates on an independently controlled and paid for internet connection that is not running on, say, a virtual private server, on Amazon Web Services, etc. If you have an internet connection at your home and you have the desire to use this technology, run a node. You can run a node on not a very powerful computer. It doesn't take that much to run a node. Any desktop will do. You can limit the amount of disk space you use. You can limit the amount of bandwidth you use by supplying appropriate parameters and configuration options to, say, Bitcoin Core software, or you can run a different type of software if you want. And you can run a node even with just a tiny bit of bandwidth, and by not keeping a full copy of the blockchain, but instead pruning it. Now, that will give you the ability to validate. It will not give the network the benefit of your bandwidth and storage to help bootstrap new nodes and support lightweight clients and things like that. If you have a connection that is not capped, or that is capped at reasonable levels, like 200 or 300 gigs a month, which is often the case with cable providers and broadband providers, then you can offer a service for the network, which is keep a full copy of the blockchain and help nodes bootstrap and lightweight clients run. And that improves the resilience, the robustness, the security of the entire network itself. So if you can do it, do it. It's a great experience. You learn a lot about all kinds of different technologies. You learn a lot about software, how to compile software, how to run software. Even better, if you really want to get your hands into a nice meaty project, go check out the Blockstream satellite program. For about $150, you can buy a 40 centimeter KU band satellite dish, which is basically the same dish you see on houses for DirecTV or one of those services. It's basically a TV satellite dish. You can buy one of those, put the right receiver on it, and connect that to a USB software-defined radio dongle, which you can also buy. They sell them as a kit. Nice weekend project, get up on your roof, put in a satellite dish, point it in the right direction, connect it to a desktop, plug in a USB software-defined radio, and now you have a node that is receiving blocks and transactions from a satellite and can compare those against blocks that are being received over the internet, and perhaps also serve internet clients from your satellite feed. That massively increases the resilience of the network. So yes, you can do a lot to help increase the resilience of the network. Why is a satellite connection so valuable? Quick little follow-up to the previous conversation. The reason a satellite connection is so valuable is because even with power outages or internet outages in a particular region, if you have nodes that are connected to satellite, they will remain connected. The satellite replays information from the last 24 hours, so you get 144 past blocks too. Even if you lose power for half a day, you can catch up with your satellite connection when you reconnect your power. And if you lose internet for days or weeks even, you can continue to remain synchronized to the Bitcoin blockchain over the satellite connection. This means that it makes the system resilient to shutdowns, even deliberate shutdowns, port blocking, and other censorship activities on the internet. When you regain your internet connection, or perhaps over a Tor connection, VPN connection, or a different port, you can serve those same blocks and transactions to your neighbors who don't have a satellite dish. So you not only are resilient to censorship, but you also undermine the censorship of others by giving them blocks and transactions through various types of other networks like Tor or VPN. Lazar asks, what would be the requirements for someone to host a Lightning Network payment channel, and will this proof-of-stake model make the rich richer? Lazar, I think the requirements are fairly lightweight, actually. There's an implementation of the Lightning Network daemon that uses a light client called Neutrino. So you don't need to run you don't need to run a full blockchain node, a node that stores the full blockchain. You don't even need to run a fully validating node. Instead, you run this lightweight node that validates the block headers and also validates transactions, but it's a much lighter weight node than a full node. And that, in conjunction with the Lightning Network node, can run on a smartphone. In fact, one of the participants in Lightning development, a guy by the name Jack Mallers, recently demonstrated a real mainnet Lightning Network transaction running on a Lightning node, full Lightning node, managing its own payment channels and even routing on an Android smartphone, I believe. And so you can run that. Lightning Network is also going to run in the form of wallets, and a wallet that runs a Lightning Network node can open payment channels to other Lightning Network nodes. It can also route payments between them, and it can either use a connection to a fully validating node like Bitcoin Core, running somewhere on a server that you control, or it can run a lightweight node like Neutrino in order to support that. So the requirements are pretty low, and you can run a Lightning Network payment channel and route Lightning Network payments without a very big computer. In fact, arguably with less resources than you need to run a full Bitcoin node. Will that model make the rich richer? You know, the idea that if you have lots of payment channels and you fund those with very large amounts of money, then you can collect lots of the Lightning Network routing fees, which makes you richer, which allows you to run more channels, which makes you richer, which allows you to run more channels. That's been one of the persistent fears. I think there is a pressure in the opposite direction, which is that you can route payments that are smaller with payment channels, just a few payment channels that are not very big. And in terms of funding, you could take, you know, maybe a tenth of a Bitcoin and run 10 or 15 channels to a bunch of nodes, and you can start collecting some small fees and increase your holdings. So you think, well, why not run 500 channels and fund them with 15 Bitcoin and then do the same? Well, now because you've put 15 Bitcoin in a system that's controlling the keys, and the risk of losing that is much higher. So there's this opposite pressure against centralization, which is that as you centralize Lightning nodes, you increase the risk of theft. Just for the same reason that exchanges are less secure than, you know, the wallet that's on your smartphone, is because an exchange is trying to protect assets worth millions of dollars under the control of just a few keys, whereas you're just running a single wallet and it's a lot harder to hack that.